It's time for Coffee on the Coast. Good afternoon and welcome to Coffee on the Coast. I'm your host this afternoon, Tina Prigge. I'm delighted to welcome back to the show Tim Gadzinski and Susie Mank from the Manitowoc Public Library. You guys, how fun it is to have both of you on at the same time. Welcome back to Coffee on the Coast.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
for
having
having
us.
us. And for having the technology that we can both appear.
Can you hear the car ferry horn sounding? It's almost like it's celebrating the start of this episode.
I think it is. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I sent them some PR material to their horn around 2 o'clock.
So
Thank
today,
you. Thank you, Car Ferry.
yeah, today we're not tooting their horn though. We are tooting the library's horn because there is a really cool event coming up. It is an evening with Sarah Vowell. She's a New York Times bestselling author and star of The Incredibles. It's a completely free event. It's going to be Thursday, July 14th at the Capitol Civic Center. This is amazing. Is this part of the summer reading program?
It is connected with the summer reading program. One of the things that our library has been trying to do is something called community engagement, where we're actually trying to get out into the public, connect with other agencies and groups in the public, and make the library a community center. Focus a little bit more and just get the community to realize the gem they have in the library and the programs that we offer. So this actually started out as a community engagement type of idea. I had heard Sarah Vowell at a library conference last fall and really enjoyed her presentation. She was one of the keynote speakers at that conference, and came back and said, well, if we're going to do community engagement, can we get a big author in here? And then talked to Tim and another coworker and said, let's make this happen. And we are just thrilled that it's actually happening now. So
It's so cool. And it's because you guys are
super librarians. I love that, Tina.
So was the process hard? You know what I mean? Did you have to start it and it took a long time, or did you know that this was the targeted time of year?
We knew we wanted to do this in the summer, but we've actually been planning and doing bits and pieces of putting this together since January. So it's been a long-term program planning, and Tim and Meredith have been awesome to work with, and there have been a lot of learning curves, which is great, because I'm hoping at some point we can do this again. So we're excited to have this be a successful event, and hopefully we can do this again in the future.
Cool.
Yeah, I think it was actually in December when
Probably.
Susie sent Meredith into my office to say, hey, do you think we should have Sarah Vowell speak at the library? And I was like,
Absolutely.
Sarah Vowell as in the Sarah Vowell, who was the author and was in The Incredibles? And she was like, yeah. I'm like, why am I even being asked this question? Right? It was just like, yeah, if we can get her, let's do it. I mean, and that was my thought from the get-go. And yeah, it's been so much fun. I'm so glad that, Susie asked me to come on board and help with this. It's just, there is a learning curve, but it's more than anything, it's just been a really positive experience about bringing something completely like unexpected that people wouldn't think to find at the Capitol Civic Center in downtown Manitowoc. And
it's so cool. Before you told me about this event, full disclosure, I had not heard of Sarah Vowell and I had not read any of her books. And as soon as you brought it up and I heard that she writes about history, and I was like, kind of lukewarm to the idea. But I read, nothing against history, but I was just like, what? But I read Assassination Vacation and it blew me away. Her style is so unique. I wish she had been my history teacher. She makes it engaging and interesting and really, I don't know, frames it in a way that you kind of get it and you can kind of put yourself in their shoes. But then she has this witty way to like bring it back to contemporary times, right? So it's like this knowledge bomb about sometimes very complicated American history, right? And then this funny little witticism or like wordplay where she says Giga or Looky Loo or Jinxie McDeath. And it just...
I love Jinxie McDeath. Poor Mary Todd Lincoln. But, I read Assassination Vacation ages ago, before I saw The Incredibles. And I loved it, and I read her other books back then. And then like about 4 months after I saw The Incredibles, I actually paid attention to the credits. And I'm like, it can't be the same Sarah Vowell. And that was the first time I knew like what her voice sounded like after having read it. But it made sense. I mean, once you hear Sarah speak, her sense of humor and writing style absolutely makes sense with how she speaks about it too.
Yeah. And I just talked to her on the phone this morning, and that voice that you hear in the Incredibles, that is her voice. That's
That
Sarah.
is
It's
her
not affected
voice.
in any
Oh,
way.
yeah. So 2
Yeah.
questions, Tina. Why do you hate history so much?
I
First
don't.
off, right there.
I actually love historical fiction, but it was just the way it was worded. I just didn't understand, assassination, vacation. Like I like the wordplay, but like the title, I just, my mind couldn't get wrapped around what it was going to be about. And it was fantastic. And I also discovered that there's presidential precedent for preferring to read than being out campaigning or out in a crowd, right? She talks about how President Garfield loved to read his books. So yeah, I absolutely adored the book. So please don't let my judging a book based on its cover deter you from reading it, because it is totally worth reading. And every other book that she's written, I would highly recommend.
So you weren't disappointed. That was my follow-up question. That we asked you to be, on stage to be
There
her
we
stage
go.
interviewer.
Yeah.
You're like,
I am
oh God,
thrilled.
how do I let the library down easily?
No.
This is the worst possible engagement.
I'm thrilled. Actually, I just turned 50 this year, right? And I was starting to think, are there still any more like unexpected thrills or excitements in the world, right? And
Oh, yeah.
literally there are, right?
Yes.
Like Sarah Vowell, what a cool thing to discover. So thank you guys.
Oh, we're happy that you found a new author. I think several people are going to be surprised at her take. And I think that was one thing that always fascinated me when I was reading more of her bios, is that she doesn't consider herself a historian. She just considers herself a writer.
Yeah.
And I think as you read those books, you can see that perspective in there, that she's not telling it to tell history. She's telling it because it's her take on what she sees history to be. And it's a different perspective. It's a unique perspective I think you don't get in a lot of other historical type books. So it's fun to have a new take on some of that. And I think I was impressed with some of the comments about her Lafayette in the Somewhat United States, where they talk about Lafayette coming back. When he first started in the American Revolution, he was only 19 or 20. And George Washington kind of took him under his wing. And then he came back on like a grand tour. He came back from France. And when he came back to the United States, she mentions that there were more people who came out to see him return than came out to see the Beatles. And it's like, you don't think about that, those comparisons like that she brings out that really make you stop in your tracks and go, oh, wow, that could have been really awesome, to be a part of that crowd when Lafayette came back. So just the perspective she throws on history is just really unique and fun.
100%, I agree. 100%. Yeah. And like you said, comparing it to the Beatles, right? It brings that contemporary loop back in. It makes it understandable for somebody reading it today, what that might have been like back in history.
Definitely. Well, and who decides to take a summer vacation to locations where there were assassination attempts? It takes a special individual. And honestly, that's why I read it. It's like that appealed to my somewhat macabre sense of humor. I'm like, well, this is all going to be gallows humor. And a lot of it was, but a lot of it was just like enlightening about how everything isn't exactly how we think it is. How
Right.
history isn't exactly what we think of it. And that's what I love about her stuff, is it's factual, but it's also just kind of imagination expanding as well.
Yeah. I asked her, I said, Sarah, do you start with the idea and then go visit the places? Or are you visiting these places and coming up with the idea? She said, nobody would choose to visit those places if they didn't already have the idea.
That's why, it's so great. Even if you haven't heard of Sarah Vowell, if anyone's watching this, it's just, it's a free event. How often do you get invited to free events at the Capitol? And I don't think you're going to walk out of the Capitol Civic Center disappointed after this evening.
No, absolutely not. She's a really great speaker. That was one of the reasons I was like, oh, we could see if we can get her to come. That would be fun.
Yeah, and even if you think history is a dry subject like Tina sometimes does, don't be like Tina. But do be like Tina and show up to see Tina
There we
with
go.
Sarah Vowell. But no, I mean it is the way she talks about history and the way she talks about everything. It is as far from dry and stuffy and classroomy as you can get.
And what's interesting too is she seems to frame it in a way that, a lot of stories, a lot of American stories are good versus evil, right? Superhero, supervillain. And she kind of shines a light on the fact that it's more complicated than that.
Mhm.
Just because somebody was oppressed doesn't necessarily mean they are all virtuous, right? Or vice versa. Like there's so many different nuances, and it's just interesting to get her perspective on how some of these historic events that we think we know so well may have kind of unfolded and influenced others. And I've literally learned so much reading her books.
Well, and she turns icons into humans.
Right.
She definitely shows you that they weren't faces out on Mount Rushmore. They weren't people in paintings, that they were people who had everyday lives and whose lives were chaotic and insane. And they just happened to also be, leaders of the world.
Yeah,
It's wild. And it's fun.
she mentioned that the presidents and the assassins actually had more in common than you would think, in the fact that they were all egomaniacs, right? Like for somebody to
Right.
think I should be president and for somebody to think I should assassinate the president, like those are like very extremes, right? Those are like opposite ends of the extreme. And in the fact that they're egomaniacs brings them back together. So she's so fascinating to talk to. I cannot wait for the community to get to hear her talk on July 14th.
Yeah.
And we
Can't
are
wait.
so excited that you are the one that gets to interview her.
Yes.
We know that you are such a proponent of the library, and we really love being able to come on your show and talk all the time. So we're excited to have you there as much as we are excited to have Sarah there. So thank you for agreeing to be part of our program.
Yeah, you
Thanks,
were
you
our
guys.
first and only choice. I mean, I'm not even speaking out of turn. Susie brought up we should have Tina do it, and I'm like, well, I hear she hates history, but
It was
okay.
kind of a no-brainer, though.
No, it was such a no-brainer.
You guys are awesome. Thank you. I'm honored to be a part of it. I'm really honored to be a part of it. And okay, what's cool is, so in preparing for this, right? Now I know I love Sarah Vowell's brand of history. So I've been consuming everything Sarah Vowell I can to prepare.
Great.
I almost fell out of my chair, and I think I messaged you guys right away, because in her book, The Wordy Shipmates, she literally mentions Manitowoc. I'm going to pull up the screen grab of the page. So you can see when I'm reading a book, don't worry, this is not a library book that I wrote in. I own this.
My God,
Thank
or
you.
there would be a
We
chart.
don't allow writing in our book. No, come on.
You would own this book now, but you already do.
But you can see I started reading the top of the page and I put a square on Manitou. I'm like, oh, Manitou. I wonder if Sarah realizes, like, that's the base of Manitowoc. And then you can see where the arrow is in the margin. As I kept reading, it literally says Manitowoc. And then I love that it says Manitowoc. They are
Our
gods.
God. Of course we are.
Well, yeah, and I mentioned this to Tina. I didn't tell you, Susie, but in my conversation with Napus, the Menominee Nation's oral historian, he talked about the same thing. He just worded it differently, and it was about that the beings are the most of whatever they are here. That's what Manitowoc means. Like, so if you are the most squirrel, if you are squirrel perfection, you're here. If you're human perfection, you're here. If
If you're
love
librarian perfection,
then you're here, and you're
Oh, that's perfect.
But I think I love that it's tying into each other, even though there's no foreknowledge that. I mean, I don't know that Napus even knows who Sarah Vowell is. He very well may, but I don't know. And I don't know if she knows who he is, but yet they were, they talked about the same things. The synergy and the synchronicity of it is very interesting.
I asked her, I said, so Sarah, you have Manitowoc in your book. Is that why you chose to come to Manitowoc? She's like, wait, I wrote about Manitowoc in my book. so then I
Who
pulled
would
up the
choose to
page.
go to Manitowoc?
She's like, I had no idea that was a town in Wisconsin. So
Doesn't she pay attention to some ice machines in hotels? For goodness sake.
Yeah, yeah. So then I asked her if she knew what Mishicot meant, and she did not know the Chief Hairy Legs story. And I said, okay, that's for another day.
That's a good one.
That's a new book. That's totally a new book.
Wouldn't that be cool if the next Sarah Vowell novel was about Manitowoc?
There we
Well,
go.
at least you should get a thank you for sure. But it would be nice if we all got thank yous. But
That'd be
just
amazing.
Little mention in the dedication maybe or something.
that would be great.
Susie, I like the way you think. Okay, you guys, so this is a free event. Do people need to register or get any kind of ticket or anything like that to attend?
Absolutely not. As with all library events, it is totally free. We are having it at the Capitol Civic Center, and we are so excited to partner with them to offer this event. So just come. No registration required at all.
And a big thank you to Courthouse Pub, which is helped us with the sponsorship for the Capitol Civic Center. The Capitol Civic Center, as Susie mentioned, partnered with us and helped us out. The Manitowoc Public Library Foundation helped us out tremendously, and the Manitowoc Public School District as well. And a couple announcements that Susie and I just kind of discovered in the past couple days about the night of the event is that first and foremost, and as soon as I get off the Coffee on the Coast, I'll be going on to our Facebook events page and changing this. Masks are no longer required for the event. Masks are optional. They're optional. If you want to wear a mask and you forget your mask at home, we will provide them still. But that's an important changing in wording that masks are now optional for the event. And secondly is we've talked about the Q&A session. And just so you're aware of this, there's going to be an area in the lobby where you will write your questions out. And they will be submitted to Sarah before the program begins so that she will probably hand them to you, Tina, to read them to her. But if you have a question for Sarah, you'll have submit it beforehand. When she arrives, we're going to talk to her to see if we might be able to get, run around with a microphone sort of element included into it, where I'll Phil Donahue around the audience at the Civic Center. But the surest way to get, we don't know about that. That's still very much up in the air. Surest way to get a question to Sarah, write it on one of the note cards in the lobby, put it in the box, and we'll get it to her.
Which is awesome because she has so much to say. She's just filled with these stories and anecdotes. And I think the less time spent, scurrying around trying to get a microphone through the audience and the more time focused on those questions specifically, the better it'll be for all of us to get to hear what she has to say.
I agree. And then don't forget that after the event, we are also going to have book signing. Sarah Vowell is going to stick around. Bev Diener from La Di Da Books is going to be set up. There you go.
There's you in your natural setting.
With your stack of Sarah Vowell books now. So she'll be available and we're going to have her all set up. So if you own a book already, and if you don't own the book, Bev Diener will be there selling copies of mostly Assassination Vacation, but she'll have a smattering of the other books as well. So anything you don't own, if you want to pick up that night, you'll be able to do that and get it signed right away by Sarah as well. So it's a really cool event all the way around. There's just so much that we have been able to put together and offer to the public. I think this is just a unique event, and we're all super excited to have this happen here in Manitowoc.
Yeah, and the book signing will happen in the Mertens Lounge, just in case that's important to anyone. But
there we go.
It'll be hard to leave.
If you own your own book, then you can make notations.
Correct.
Correct. If you own a library book,
please don't
be like Nina.
So therefore, Bev can sell you her books.
Yep.
So Bev, you don't mind if people buy a book and write in them, right? Once you own the book, you can.
Once you own the book, it's your business, right?
There you
That's
go.
Right. That's right.
Hey, Tina, is it okay if we mention another Sarah Vowell event that is also open?
Yes.
The afternoon of the event, starting at 1 p.m., there is an event happening at the library for people between the ages of 11 and 18, and it's called Right On, a creative writing workshop with Sarah Vowell, and Sarah has agreed to do an hour-long,
Workshop,
essentially workshop,
sort of.
a walkthrough on like the creative process and answer questions about your own writing and how she found her own voice, and any sort of, you can ask her for recommendations on what's the best way to find your voice. But it's amazing. I never had an opportunity like this when I was between the ages of 11 or 18 or 11 and 58, to be quite honest. But registration is required for this event. There are only
Limited
25
seats.
spots, and it's filling up pretty quickly. So if anyone knows a teen who likes to write, or if some someone between the ages of 11 and 18 is watching this now, head to the library's events page. Go to our calendar, the 14th of July, next Thursday at 1 in the afternoon, and register for this event. And of course, it's free.
It's free,
It's amazing.
always.
You guys, the programming that you bring here at the Manitowoc Public Library is just over the top. We are so fortunate here on the coolest coast to have access to this programming. So the Writers Workshop on July 14th, what a cool opportunity for our youth to participate in. And then a completely free event again for the entire community that evening with best-selling author Sarah Vowell. I absolutely love this. I just want to put this up again so that people know. Thursday, July 14th, 6:30 p.m. It's at the Capitol Civic Center in Manitowoc. Thank you to the generous sponsors down below for making this possible. No registration required. Wow. How long do you think it'll be? Like if somebody shows up at 6:30, or if they want to write a question, should they come sooner than that?
Come sooner.
Come sooner. Yeah, the doors open, Tim, at 5:45.
5:45.
Yes.
So show up sooner, and submit your question. Grab a good seat, because there's no assigned seating. Yeah, as you know, and if it fills up in the orchestra and the downstairs section fills up, they are ready to open up the mezzanine and the balcony at a moment's notice. So, yeah, I mean, I know it's kind of like shooting for the stars, but how amazing would it be to have the Civic Center full that night?
It would be incredible. And if you're watching this, feel free to leave a question in the comments here if there's something particular that you want us to ask Sarah, in case you can't get there early, or if it's on your mind right now. Go ahead, we can start collecting those questions already.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Yeah, so show up early. Like Susie said, doors open at 5:45. Show gets started at 6:30. In theory, Tina and Sarah will be having an onstage discussion for an hour. I'll be surprised if it actually sticks to that. But the Q&A is supposed to start at 8 o'clock, and then no, I'm sorry, at 7:30, and then move into the book signing after that. So all told, it's around a 2-hour event, a little bit longer. But if the body of the event goes a little bit longer, I don't think anyone's going to be complaining.
I did have a 20-minute conversation with Sarah today that lasted an hour and 10 minutes. So,
like we said.
Like we said. But, I can't imagine it will be anything but captivating and fun and interesting, this conversation. So,
yeah,
it's a great event for like a ladies' night out or a family event or whatever. We're the audience is so widespread, I think, for this kind of event, because I think people of all ages can get something out of it and find it enjoyable. So, grab a friend, make a night of it. It'll be a great time.
Yeah, and she talks often about traveling and doing a lot of her research with her teen nephew. So, I mean, it's definitely teen appropriate. Like, come and enjoy this incredible experience. Oh, an incredible experience.
There you go, Tina.
I see what you unintentionally did there. But yeah, no, she does love, she loves working with teens. And she loves working with younger people. That's why she offered this writer's workshop. So, take advantage of that. If you're even mildly interested, there are plenty of worse ways to spend an hour in the afternoon on Thursday than asking questions about, the creative process with someone who's been on the New York Times bestseller list, 4 or 5 times?
Yeah.
So and in a great animated movie. It's one of my top favorite animated movies personally.
It really is a great one. And one thing I've really appreciated from reading her books is an appreciation for historic plaques and markers.
Oh yeah.
Like those are just some things that I've tended to, well, you can probably guess, just kind of ignore or not really pay attention to.
Huh.
I don't know
Not
why.
really that shocking, really.
But ever since then, now, like yesterday we were driving through Sheboygan and there was there's a big statue down by Fountain Park. And I'm like, Jason, stop the car. I want to get out and see what
Stop the
See
car.
what it says.
And I was in St. Nazianz the other day and there's this amazing church and I got out and read the plaque and I'm like so glad that I did, right? Like I had no idea it was on the State Register of Historic Places, the year that it was built. You can learn so much from paying attention to those things.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. It's amazing what you find out. Like I remember walking through downtown Minneapolis a year ago and seeing congressional offices because they have the plaques of who is the congressperson on right outside. And I never really paid attention, but once you start paying attention to historical signs and like roadside announcements, it's kind of addictive.
Yeah, and it kind of gives you a real sense of place.
Yeah.
It's not just what's spinning around right now, but to think of like the shoulders that we stand on, who went before. Like I was in Milwaukee a couple of weeks ago and to see a plaque for, Father Marquette in 1604, 1674, something like that. I was like, I mean, that's some deep history that it's easy to forget about until you see one of those plaques.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
definitely.
I think about the trading that was done right here in Manitowoc and the shipbuilding and all of that came way before us. That's been here and is part of our history. It's why we are who we are. So yeah, super important.
Gods.
Manitowoc. There we go. We are never going to forget that one, right? I mean, we need to, Tim, get that one put into a plaque and post it somewhere in the library.
We should. Definitely.
So viewers, I think you can see this the coming Thursday, not today, not tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow. So next Thursday is going to be a fascinating conversation, an awesome opportunity to have an evening with Sarah Vowell at the Capitol Civic Center, completely free. I think the conversation is going to be so interesting. I just can't wait to hear her talk about, from her perspective, all of these things that she's written about and more.
Oh, definitely. And I think it's going to be an event that's like none other that's happened, at least in my lifetime in Manitowoc. It may have happened earlier in what came before, but I don't know. I can't say. But I've never, had an experience like this before. And it's not like she's reading from her books or anything. She's just talking.
She's just talking.
Yeah, conversations. And I think people are going to find it fascinating and well worth their time to come to this event. So, we're super excited to host this and hopefully it will be the beginning of many more of these types of events.
Yeah, and the Capitol is such a great setting too.
Oh yeah, for sure. What questions are you guys thinking of? Do you already have a question in mind that you want to ask her?
Oh, wow. I guess in reading some of her biographical information, she talks about her parents and herself growing up one way and then becoming Democratic or non-Democratic and Republican and Democrat in the same house. So I guess my question would be is how did she traverse all of that, as she was growing up, because there were so many different perspectives on things in her house. And that idea that she tends to talk about, I think you see it in her books too, that, letting people have their own opinion and still respecting them and not sitting there trying to convince them differently or argue with them.
Yeah.
It's like, it's okay for all of us to not agree. And how did she come up with that kind of attitude towards things? Was it her upbringing or was it, some specific event? Because I don't know. I can't imagine growing up in a household with, Democrat and Republican in the same household. How does that work? I don't know. So I just think it's fascinating. And I think you can kind of see how that perspective has come through in her books, that she's totally willing to see the good and bad in everyone. It isn't just this side is good, and like you were talking about before, there isn't just the good and bad. There's a lot of gray area in there.
A lot of gray. Yep. Tim, what about you?
Um, who inspired her, or who supported her to move forward with the uniqueness of her voice? Because you had to have someone in your corner, unless she just had amazing intestinal fortitude. And I don't think this is something that just kind of popped out of nowhere. That someone gave her the courage and the support to move forward to develop the voice that she did. And who was that? Because they deserve a plaque of their own. Because I mean, I guess we should all be more this way to express your uniqueness. And she definitely, she's made a career out of her uniqueness. So what was the foundation of that?
Yeah, good questions, you guys. I can see you are totally prepared. This is going to be fantastic.
Well, we do work at the library. So
I think one of the
hopefully
other
it's not that
things,
shocking.
yeah, there you go. I think one of the other things that fascinated me too about her biography was the fact that she was on the board and even president of the board of a teen writing center in Chicago. She definitely has a soft spot in her heart for teens, and especially teen writers. And I think, again, like Tim said, where did that come from? Why is that such a big deal for her and so important to her? And even if you think about the character she voices, Violet is a teenager.
That's true.
There's a lot of things related to teens in her biography and in her life, and why. Was it some kind of struggle that she went through growing up? Was it somebody she connected with? What made her focus on teens and writing like that? So anyway.
Yeah, and then how did she unlock it and deliver it to the world, which is amazing.
Also, what's her favorite sandwich? That's important. And
She's
easy to
gluten-free, Tim. No sandwiches.
Oh, right. If it's on gluten-free bread, it's fine.
Okay, there you go.
Oh, you guys are too funny. You guys are too funny. So think about your questions, viewers, for what you'd like to ask Sarah. You do not have to ask a question. Don't feel any pressure. Please come and enjoy the event. It is going to be phenomenal. Tim, Susie, thanks for all you do to bring this amazing programming. Really looking forward to an evening with Sarah Vowell.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you for being such a huge part of it.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure. Cool, you guys.
And I made it through an entire episode with Susie without eating any crickets. So that's kind of important too.
I did spin the wheel at the library, but I got a bookmark, a feathered bookmark, no crickets.
Would you have accepted the crickets had you?
You would be just surprised to know, though, that we are almost out of crickets. We've had enough people upstairs take them. So we've got a couple of kids.
I've been spending an inordinate amount of time at the library, and I always
got
forget
crickets.
food.
I'm so excited. I got crickets, and their parents are going, "You're like kidding me. They really get crickets?" And I'm like, "Yes." The parents are just giving us this look like, real crickets?
Have they been more into the crickets that like I snacked on, or the crickets in the suckers?
I think our sucker crickets are all gone. I still have like mostly the salt and vinegar flavored crickets left in the box.
Sucker crickets is a good name for a band, though.
And bacon and cheese were more popular than salt and vinegar ones.
Well, that's because we're not in Great Britain. In Great Britain, those would have flown off the shelf.
Any leftover once the summer reading program is over, Tim, would you come back on the show and eat some more?
We'll get him to eat a whole box full.
Without a doubt.
Like a whole handful, just.
I will commit to that now. I will eat as many crickets as are left. Whether it's 1 or 1,000. I will eat them all.
We live on the coolest coast.
I'm a cricket eating machine, baby.
Too fun. Well, I don't know if you guys realize this, but we are still live, so maybe we should say.
What? We were on camera this whole time? Oh, boy.
All right. You've been watching Coffee on the Coast. Definitely join us for an evening with Sarah Vowell, Thursday, July 14th, 6:30 p.m. at the Capitol Civic Center. You are not going to want to miss this. Thank you so much to our guests today, Tim Gedzinski and Susie Menk of the Manitowoc Public Library. It has been delightful. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.